Thor. We're gonna.
Oh, me and Russian vodka.
That's a cute little pet you have.
Look at Thor. I grew up with cats. My mom's a cat lady.
Yeah. Thor. We're gonna.
All right, Carmen, we're live.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Intuitive Report with Michael Jaco and Carmen Studer. We have, I'm so excited. We have Shaun Attwood with us here today. And I have to give you a little background on how I found Shaun. I was just waking up to all of the satanic ritual abuse and the MK Ultra, and I happened to find Maria Farmer's name, and I Googled it, and Shaun Attwood's interview with her came up, and my jaw was on the floor hearing all the stuff about Ghislaine Maxwell. And so I followed you on Twitter, been a fan, been watching all of your shows. And then Maria and I connected. And I just want to, I don't know if she can hear or if she does listen to this, but I just wanted to thank Maria and tell her she is so brave and such an amazing person. And I love, Shaun, how you don't just interview people. You are an advocate and a pillar for these women and men that have been abused in the system. And it's just beautiful. I love what you do. I love how you stay connected. And I actually really connected with her because of your Twitter. And when I saw that she was going through cancer, I reached out to her and offered her a free healing meditation. And it was so wonderful because she did take me up on it, and we did an hour, and it was fabulous because she had been in so much pain, and she actually fell asleep for the first time. And I literally was like, Maria, and hung up. And the only reason I share this is because she shared it on Twitter. So it was really cool. And I just love your heart. And thank you so much for coming. He has an incredible channel called True Crimes. You want to just give us a short synopsis about it?
Yeah, I started out just putting prison stories on my channel, and then we branched out into like stories from ex-cops, ex-prison guards, journalists at the forefront of various big crime stories like Madeleine McCann. And then the Epstein came along, and someone sent me a question, what do you think is going to happen to him now he's been arrested? And I put a video out titled, Will Bill Clinton have Epstein eliminated to avoid a Lolita scandal? And then when that came to fruition, allegedly, could be Clinton. When that came to fruition, the channel just went crazy, and it's not stopped ever since. We've got, I think, almost 450 videos on the Epstein case on the channel now. Right. You mentioned Maria Farmer. What an absolute brave soul. I think we were the last people to interview her before she was legally gagged. And the amount of detail, I mean, she'd been messed around by various media figures, and she just wanted to get it all out there, all this extra detail. And she spoke to me, she spoke to Whitney Webb, who's also doing brilliant work. And like you said, it is absolutely fascinating and riveting, all that extra detail of what she linking in the Rothschilds and everything else. So yeah, props to her. Another good one was Paul Page, Prince Andrew's Royal Protection Officer. And he describes Maxwell being allowed through without the proper security protocol. And if the protection cops stopped Maxwell or did something to upset Prince Andrew, he would just get on the phone. He'd be like, don't you know effing well know who she's effing coming to see? I'll effing get down there and you'll have no effing job. And he was absolutely brutal, just cursing and swearing at the Royal Protection cops. And you can see what kind of a monster he is, you know, from people who had first-hand experience with him. But what led me to the bridge into this world, and perhaps Michael, with his CIA knowledge, can contribute to this, is Southern Air Transport. So I've written a series of books about the war on drugs. I've researched the Clinton crime family extensively, and I learned about his governorship when he was just coked up, raping women. We've got all these sexual assault suits settled. Even his own brother got busted in this coke deal, saying that Bill's got a nose like a vacuum cleaner, and you know he's overseeing this importation business for the CIA. He's providing this Arkansas state security. And for doing that, my research has led me to believe that's why he was awarded the White House, working with George H.W. Bush, working with Oliver North. It's just one big crime family, the Bush and Clinton crime families. So it was Southern Air Transport. You familiar with them, Michael?
Oh yeah. And Shaun, I love your background. So give people a little bit more on your background. You came to America from the UK and started your own, into investment and start throwing rave parties and little ecstasy going on there, and you're like getting it coming in, and a lot of parties going on, and then the next thing you know, they're busting down your door and taking you to jail. So then, like me, you're thrown into a combat situation. But unlike me, with lots of training in that environment, you're like no training in that environment, and you're thrust into pretty much a combat zone in the prison system. And you start to see the corruption, like we're talking about right now. You start to see all of the different parties that are involved in, manipulating, and profiting off drug trafficking, human trafficking, arms trafficking. And I saw that in the CIA. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thrust into the Maricopa County jail system. SWAT team came May 16, 2002. Wasn't my brightest idea to be bringing ecstasy into Arizona, I must admit. But being unsentenced for 26 months, I got to understand the nature of the plea bargaining system, how it's just a conveyor belt to the private prisons, and all the parasitical entities that were profiting from the self-perpetuation of that. Before I got arrested, I thought prisoners lock them up, throw away the key. They're pedophiles, murderers, serial killers, drug traffickers. Not making excuses for what I did. I was a drug trafficker, ecstasy. But once I got in there, saw the average arrest was like a black kid or a Mexican kid with a bit of weed, getting like a 2 to 5 year sentence. I'm like, what is going on? More than half of my friends in there were soldiers, come back from wars, PTSD, didn't get any help, ended up on street drugs, ended up in prison. I learned that the jail was the biggest house of the mentally ill, and hearing all the sad stories, thrown away as kids, abused as kids, not given any help in life, it made me feel doubly guilty for committing my crimes. I had a good education, good family support. I'm like, a lot of these people were in there by necessity. So I started to help them, reading their legal paperwork, teaching the Mexicans who worked out in the countryside how to write home in Spanish. And the last thing I did was, with a tiny little pencil sharpened on the door, I started to write everything down. This was in the maximum security Madison Street Jail, 2004. Couldn't put these things I was writing down in the mail because the guards can open the mail. So I recruited my aunt. She smuggled them out of max security. Yeah, typed them up, emailed them to my family in Cheshire, and they put them online as a blog, John's Jail Journal, which is still up, but it's mostly YouTube videos these days. And it went on to attract international media attention to the conditions in that jail. So that's what launched me as an author and an activist and a YouTuber.
I love it.
Very nice. Very nice.
I worked with guys out of jail with my charity. And so I really got to understand that it truly is a system. And that's why the recidivism is so high. There's no way for them to get out of it unless they really do have somebody to help, or they just have God on their side. It's insane. And so I do have a question, though, that has nothing to do with anything, but what's the cockroach behind you for?
Okay, so the things I was writing about in the beginning in the jail were the dead rats in the food, gang violence, guards murdering mentally ill prisoners. We didn't get any heat. It was all heat. There was no fresh air. I was locked down for almost a year, covered in skin infections and bed sores. Oh. And the cockroaches, like 8 at night is lockdown, 10 was lights out. Now, they knew when the lights were about to go out. They would line up in the cracks in the wall, doing a movement with their antennae sticking out. Wow. Soon as the lights went out, they just flooded the room. So you had a choice. wrap a sheet around you like the mummy, leave a breathing hole. It does keep them off you, but this is the Sonoran Desert, almost 50 degrees on the UK scale, 120s on the American scale. So when you have that sheet around you, it traps the heat to your body. Like I said, you got all these bleeding, skin infections, and bed sores. The trapped heat is so unbearably itchy, you can't possibly sleep. So you end up just opening the sheet and letting them crawl on you. Fortunately, they don't bite. They start out tickling your feet. To this day, if anyone tickles my hands, I flinch because I woke up so many nights and tickling my hands. Again, your face, mouth, nose. Favorite place was going in your ears, though, to eat your earwax. It was like honey to them. I had a neighbor who was asthmatic, wakes up one morning out of breath, grabs his inhaler, shoots a live cockroach inside himself. Starts freaking out, saying he could feel it moving around. And he's throwing up and he couldn't even get it out of him. Yeah, there was, even in the daytime, there was so many. Prisoners were doing cockroach races on the day room tables, gambling on the winner.
So this is your humility icon.
That's my brand, is the cockroach. It's my logo.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, my writing was discovered by the Guardian newspaper. They saw my blog. They took excerpts of what I was writing about living with the cockroaches, because I had to, when they're there all the time, you have to adapt, and they become your friends over time, and you learn everything about them. So this black humorous style I have of writing, the Guardian put all these excerpts, and on the front page of the newspaper, they had a big American cockroach. So that's what started it.
I love it. That's the beginning of it all. That's so cool.
Yeah.
That and ecstasy. And I think it's interesting that you now fascinate more people than you ever did when you did ecstasy.
Oh, thank you.
It's awesome.
And you have a good sense of humor about it too, and that's good. I know it's definitely when I was in combat zones, the thing that kept us going was our senses of humor. And
you've got to, otherwise you perish, don't you? If you don't have a
absolutely
positive mental attitude, and the gallows humor is really integral, especially when you're in a dangerous environment. Yeah,
that's exactly the way we are. The gallows humor, yeah, definitely. So Jeffrey Epstein. So when I, saw him, go to prison, I'm like, they're gonna take him out. It's obviously gonna happen, but who's gonna take him out? And is he really gonna be taken out, or is it gonna be staged, and they're gonna take him out and then question him? So I think the latter. I think they've taken him out and questioned him. I don't know. Maybe you have a little bit more insight on that from your background. What do you think?
Okay, so I think that either are possible. My book that I'm putting the finishing touches to now is called Who Killed Epstein? Prince Andrew or Bill Clinton? So from my research, I'm leaning more towards his death. But when it comes to the intelligence agencies, anything is possible. He could be on some island with Kenneth Lay and other people who have a lot of knowledge about the Bush and Clinton crime families and other stuff. When he was suicided, let's say then, assuming that route, for the cameras to go down, for two guards to simultaneously fall asleep in that jail, where there's no record of two guards simultaneously falling asleep since it began in the 70s, for all those things just to align,
right?
It's just, it's insane, isn't it? Absolutely insane.
Yeah, and that's to me, that's some of the guys that I used to work with, special forces and the CIA special teams and stuff like that. That's it sounds like that type of mission, and that's kind of the reason why I lean towards that. And some of the things that seems to have been coming out as far as like disclosure, we get a trickle of that right now. And then there's the one lawyer that's been coming out lately and talking about how he's still alive as well. So there's a lot of
Linwood.
Exactly.
Yeah, that lit the whole Epstein thing up again online. And it's the case. I mean, Ghislaine's lawyers said at one of the hearings recently that look at all the other abuse stories in the media, then look at the Epstein Maxwell story, and there's more news stories just on their story than all of the others combined, Weinstein and everybody else. And if you look at the Black Book and see the magnitude of the people in there, the billionaires, the presidents, the prime ministers, the supermodels, the rock stars, it's something that's never going to die down because conspiracy cases just branch out. And unless Maxwell's going to get some play under the Biden presidency because of Biden's relationship with the Clintons, you know, us activists and researchers have been hoping that the indictment would go upwards to some of the more serious players like Wexner, Leon Black. You know, it's just come out that it was over $150 million he gave Epstein for private, financial advisory and taxation services. That has got to be utter bullshit. So if Epstein's net worth was over $500 million, Leon Black financed a quarter of the sexual blackmail operation that has had hundreds, if not thousands, of victims of teenage girls. And what's this guy? How is this guy being held accountable? Not at all. Is Prince Andrew being held accountable? His 60th birthday party was cancelled. Holy shit. Is the Queen's favorite son going to be allowed to go on a prison yard and face convict justice by the Aryan Brotherhood prison gang and get some of this? No, he's not. So it's one law for them, the untouchables, and another law for the rest of us.
It shows you how deep the tentacles go, because I was listening to Kaya Bickle and you talking about Nygaard, who also was a sex trafficker and getting away with it. And it was interesting because he was explaining how, yes, you can take this guy down, but there's all these getaway cars. And that's kind of the way that they've set it up. And so if you were in charge of the world, how would you set up the law system, or what things would you do to change it and make it better in the future?
Good grief, that's a very deep question, Carmen. Wow, I've never been asked anything like
big brain.
I've never been asked anything like this before. So while I was incarcerated, I read over 1,000 books in just under 6 years, including a lot of history, philosophy, sociology, and it made me really ponder human nature. And if you look at revolutions like the French Revolution and other revolutions that come about, including China, then the people that are campaigning on the grounds that we're going to take these evil bastards out of office and we're going to come in and be completely humanitarian, once those people get into office, quite often they do even more evil things than the people they have replaced. Mm-hmm. So how do we stop this if human nature is unchangeable?
Yeah. So, Epstein Island, where they took a lot of, high level people like you're talking about went, to me has a pretty much set up operation, CIA, because I have that background, MI6, Mossad, basically collecting information on people to use dirt on them. And of course, they have their top level people are really dark and do very atrocious things to pedophiling. And that's kind of where Carmen and I have been focusing for a long time on the pedophile network and how this thing just continues to keep going. How is that? Because they own the system. They own the politicians. They own the judges. Because we've seen a top level judge from the Supreme Court supposedly has gone down there, and so they own everybody. So that's how they get away with keeping these pedophile networks going.
Yeah, and I've interviewed various ex-cops in my campaigning on the war on drugs, and they say that everything the cops come up with, there's an arms race with the traffickers, and it becomes even more evil and insidious and violent. Mm-hmm. And it's just this race then whereby whoever is the most psychopathic will dominate the cocaine business and maximize their profits. So an analogy is then, if all of these various intelligence agencies are competing around the world, mm-hmm. are the most psychopathic ones going to rise to the top, just like in the drug trafficking world. And I believe that probably is the case. So there's an incentive to do these wicked things and justify it and say that it's in the interest of national security. People I've interviewed include Ari Ben-Menash, former Israeli military intelligence. And he said that's how they always justify it. If we don't do this, if we can't, have adults have sex with teenagers and kids, boys and girls, if we are not authorized to do this, then the safety of Israel is at risk. The Arabs are going to attack us, blah, blah, blah. And these are Ari Ben-Menash's words. This is how he said these things are justified.
So sick. Just amazing.
Yeah. And I think that as more stuff gets exposed, like we're talking about, I'm surprised that you're still alive. I'm surprised I'm still alive sometimes. And I'm shadow banned on my channels, and they get shut down a lot. But you have a very nice knack of continuing your statements and keeping things out there. You've been on TED Talks. You got 1.2 million views on that. It's an absolutely brilliant show that you did there. And I think that as we go forward, as more stuff gets revealed, we're able to present more under the safety of more people being in the know.
Yeah, I am running a true crime channel, and I'm not political on either side. I observe politics, so I don't go down any of the roads that I've seen other people who I've worked with. I've seen them wake up and the channel is either gone, e.g. David Icke, or the channel has been completely demonetized. So we try and keep a blend of true crime stories coming out every week.
Good.
I think if we were just hammering the child trafficking and elite sexual abuse, then we would be targeted more fully. We have been targeted. I had a number of problems last year, but was able to reverse them all.
Nice.
So I'm in very good standing with YouTube now. I've got the partnership program. I've got contact with them.
Wow.
And because of the eclectic subjects and guests that we have, I think we're classified as like a politically neutral true crime channel rather than a channel that's just, overthrow the government. Right. This is what's happening in the world. It's absolutely sick. There's certain lines that I feel that I've brushed up against, but then I've been able to pull back from. I've had to delete a hell of a lot of videos. Let's put it that way.
Well, it's great. I love the variety. My favorite show so far that I've seen is the one with the Phoenix Enigma, where he did the entire Isaac Kappy breakdown. If anyone is interested in Isaac Kappy, please go watch that video. It is incredible. And Phoenix Enigma is the most detailed, I don't know. He just keeps track of everything, and he's got links to every single thing he talks about. It was incredible. And it was a cute love story. So the girl in me loved how, the woman that was hanging out with Isaac Kappy the last week of his life, she was also doing research, and the two of them met doing research, fell in love, and got married. And I was like, oh, I love this story. Very cool.
Yeah, that was one of the most fascinating ones I did. It was on the back of a number of Lynn Wood videos that I did that were getting almost 1 million views within days. And we had to take all those down because of Lynn Wood getting deplatformed. So,
smart.
Yeah, we could just work with the framework we're provided and try and stay within the limits of those community guidelines.
Very smart. It's worked well. I think when I found you, I think you had 75,000 followers or something, and now you're at like over 600,000. It's incredible.
Oh yeah, crushing it.
And then the other one that was really interesting to me was the Phil Chalmers, the one you had the the serial killer that called into the show.
Oh my goodness!
Oh my God.
I don't usually listen to what I do the next day, but I got up and was compelled to listen to that again. I went to bed with a sick stomach. I woke up feeling flustered, and how cold was that guy?
It was just like, oh yeah, if you let me out, I'll kill people again.
Wow.
If a woman comes up to my truck and disrespects me, I'm just going to say, yeah, okay, get in, snap her neck, throw her in the back. Like he's talking about, like, you know, he's just making chicken dinner or something.
It was nuts. So what's the thing, like, to me, when I was listening to you with Maria Farmer, the thing that really took my breath away the most, I think, was when she talked about how she went into Ghislaine's house and her artwork from when she was 10 that was, she thought, in her desk at home. What are some other stories like that that you have to share that maybe the average person wouldn't understand about how this all affects globally, you know?
I think two of the researchers at the forefront of this are Charlie Robinson and Whitney Webb. I've learned so much from both of them. So Charlie Robinson also has done a lot of overlap with the Clinton crime family. And I've had people contact me privately about how kids were coming from Haiti and these other places to Epstein's Island, but nobody ever hears about any of these victims. We hear about these ladies in the West, you know, who could speak out in English and are well educated.
Right.
But these other victims, like Epstein and Maxwell, were joking about how these East European girls from the poorest backgrounds, who they'd pumped full of ideas of becoming models, and then were getting thrown into these orgies on the pedo island with Prince Andrew. And they were joking about how these were the easiest girls to traffic. They can't even speak any English. You know, when are we ever going to hear the voices of any of these people? Are these people still alive? Are these people so terrified that whoever procured them from the, you know, poor areas of Europe would come and wipe out their entire families? So there's all this other stuff behind the scenes that Charlie Robinson has researched. And one is the pipeline to Haiti and the Clinton Foundation's role in that, and how the female that was working for Clinton was caught with a kid and tried to say that the kid was an orphan. And then the kid's mother appeared and like, that kid's not an orphan. And that woman was apprehended, but it changed her name and is presently working in some child safety capacity in America now.
Yeah, like, wasn't it Amber Alert or something?
Yeah, Amber Alert, yes.
My daughter told me that. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
They changed her name or something like that. Yeah, that's just, it's nuts. And that's one of the things that, you know, coming from my background in charity, I've really learned to look at who the major investors are, where the money goes to, because you'll look at their 990s and like, this one goes here and then this one goes there. And then that one, you know, leads to Haiti. And it just, it's wild.
Well, if you're a team player, you get promoted. All of the people who were team players with the Clinton cocaine trafficking in Arkansas, they all got awarded positions in the White House. Apart from Larry Nichols, that is, the whistleblower. He died, I believe, recently. And he said that as part of the Arkansas Development Finance Authority, purportedly was going to, you know, stimulate jobs and create work for the state. Tens of millions in cocaine proceeds was getting washed through ADFA every month. And one of the ways they did it was you just got a loan that you never had to repay. Now, to get a loan, you had to file a fee with the Rose Law Firm. Surprise, surprise. So just got this spider's web of money branching out. Whitney Webb, I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
He has done fantastic work. And it was her who pointed out to me that Southern Air Transport was relocated from Florida to Ohio by none other than Wexner and Epstein. So you got this bridge then from the old school cocaine trafficking into the honey trap blackmail operation run by those guys. And I say run by those guys, it was Maria Farmer who pointed out that Wexner, quote, head of the snake, was the boss over Maxwell and Epstein. So there's a lot of discussion about that and whether the indictment will go up to Wexner and Leon Black, or whether the indictment will go down to some of the females who were procured, who later became procurers themselves.
It's interesting because Kai was talking about that today or whenever I was listening, and he was saying that with his dad, that I guess there was women, or maybe it was a video I saw about Nygaard, but that what was happening is these women were trafficked in and kind of stuck there. They were going to have something happen, and they either had to have sex with him or they had to go find somebody else. And I mean, if I'm in that situation, I'll be finding somebody. And I mean, that's just, survival instinct. I mean, it's not true. Like the me now would never go find somebody, I'd stand up and I'd fight. But it's just, you see how they get caught at that young age. Like, I don't want to have sex with them again. Like, I'll go help him find somebody.
I mean, how bleak is that? You're a kid, you've seen all these, Victoria's Secrets models, and next thing you're talking to somebody from that company who's telling you, I can make you famous, you can have a huge career out of this. Then you're flown to some island, breathtaking to behold on the flight there, but as soon as you get there, your passport is removed. You're invited to a party in Nygaard's place, these pamper parties, whereby if you don't go and have sex with one of these people, drugs are put in your drink and you are forcibly sodomized. And if you try to escape from that island, these guys are so rich, they've got all of the local authorities in their pockets. Just like when Maria Farmer tried to escape from the Wexner property, she called the cops. And the cops said, well, most of our guys are off duty right now. She found out anyway that most of the guys who were off duty for that police department were working as security for Wexner.
Yep.
There's just no hope.
Yeah. And that's the part that's so frustrating is there's so many bystanders, and how do we strengthen the bystander? And it's interesting because, Michael does a lot of intuitive work and I do a lot of intuitive work. And when I work with my guys out of jail, I always asked them, was there any warnings? Like, did you get any hit? Because I'm trying to teach them intuition. Mm-hmm. Did you get any hit that day was not going to be a good day? Did you get any hit that you needed to go the other direction? And almost every time they're like, you know what? My girlfriend had never said anything. And I was curious if the same thing happened to you. If you had some intuition before you went down that road, like warnings before it actually hit hard.
Mm-hmm.
So warnings before down which road? Sorry.
To keep you if you had any warnings, intuitive hits that would have said, you know what, Shaun, you are taking the wrong road down this ecstasy.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I'd watched too many movies like Blow and Pulp Fiction. And once I was on drugs, it scrambled my decision-making processes to make me think that I was like a character out of the movies. Right. And I thought I was so smart that I would never get caught because the drugs was telling me that. Mm-hmm. And I surrounded myself with people who were behaving equally insanely. And we all reinforced each other's crazy behavior. So there was no one to put the brakes on. And that's how it got more out of control over time.
Right. Yeah, the intuitive, brainwave patterns that, you have to be in are suppressed by a lot of drugs. But, there's some drugs, of course, that help you get there. But those lower level drugs are suppressing you. And there's a reason why they go after people that are very successful. And that's because they're starting to step on other feet, other people making profits and stuff like that. So what do you think about those other feet that maybe you stepped on during that time frame?
So I started out in the ecstasy when it wasn't that much well known by the authorities in the beginning, because I had one smuggler got to Sky Harbor Airport with vitamin containers in her luggage, and she was stopped, and they took her into a back room and they took them out and they said to her, "What are they?" And she said, "Vitamins." And they said, "Cool," and put them back in a case and told her to have a nice day. Yeah, so I was aware that the drug trafficking through Arizona at that time was dominated by like the cartels, Mexican Mafia, New Mexican Mafia, and that was primarily weed and coke and crystal meth. So I wasn't stepping on any toes, but I was told that my mistake was I hadn't paid off the police and hadn't paid off the
Wow.
local authorities. So that was my comeuppance.
Wow.
And then the prosecutor, I mean, I remember listening to your story, and looked like your family, you know, mortgaged the home and came to your rescue, and then the prosecutor was trying to make a name for herself, so she upped your sentence, and the judge was like, okay, yep, now he's like, you know, 1.2 whatever million bail, and it put you out of league, and then
Whoa.
maximum security prison. It's crazy.
Yeah, if you don't sign the plea bargain, if you don't cow down,
Mm.
they turn the screws on your brain. And I was facing my bail bond was $750,000 from the get-go. And then about a year in, we asked for a reduction. The judge doubled it to 1.5 million, which automatically reclassified me to max security. But you know what? I credit max security, where I discovered the cockroaches and they became my friends. It was the intensity of the conditions in there that launched me as the activist and the author. So looking back, I got to thank the prosecutor now.
It is interesting how perspective changes sometimes when you get further down the timeline. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I was resenting getting caught for the first short period of time, but now I credit the SWAT team with saving my life, getting me out of that drug-crazed road that leads to the prison, death, mental hospital. And I do talks now. Before the lockdown, I was doing over 100 talks a year to kids in schools, drugs education, scaring the living daylights out of them with what happens in jails in Arizona in the hope they won't get involved in drugs and crime.
That's good. Yeah. And I think, you know, that turning that happened for you, it's kind of something that happened to me in combat, where I decided to take it to the next level. I became a remote viewer and influencer and all kind of crazy stuff. So my angel wings came out. I started to do, you know, good things instead of like going, you know, being a pawn, you know, like a lot of us realize that we are in the military and law enforcement sometimes. But what happened with you is what really changed you to really decide, I'm going to take my message and give it out to people?
Okay, so that first year I was still quite wild, and if I'd have got released during that first year, I probably would have gone back. I'd stopped the trafficking, but I would have gone back to partying and taking drugs myself. I hadn't faced my inner demons. Second year, when they doubled my bail, they doubled my charges, and they said that if I went to trial and lost, I was going to be facing a maximum 200-year sentence. I thought, right, 200-year, the rest of my life in this kind of conditions, I might as well just slash my wrists and bleed out. So I planned to do that after a guard did a security walk, just lay there with the cockroaches and bleed out. But before I was going to do it, I wanted to say goodbye to my family. And what I mean by that was I was allowed 7 photos. So I got the 7 photos out, my mom, dad, girlfriend, sister. And I'm looking at the pictures of my mom, and I got real sad thinking, your mom's going to get a call saying your son's just killed himself in a foreign prison. And to be honest, I started crying at that point. I couldn't bear the thought of putting my mum through that. And that's what stopped me. And that was the turning point. And I credit being pushed to the brink of suicidal insanity with crushing that English Shaun ecstasy trafficker persona out of me. Because around that time, then I started to think about the needs of other people. Mentioned earlier, I thought prisoners lock them up, throw away the key. Got in there, realized a lot of them are most society's vulnerable people. And that's when I started to help the prisoners. A guy limped into my cell one day. He had like a screw loose in something. He'd been injured in his leg, I think it was. And he was in agony. He had hepatitis C. So many had hepatitis C from sharing dirty needles. 90% were injecting heroin and crystal meth. And he had stomach cancer, and he had syphilis. So he was in absolute agony when he went on the toilet, and his stomach cancer was so advanced, he was going to die. They get what, $60,000 a year, taxpayers' money. If you get sick in there, heaven help you. They say there are 2 death rows: people sentenced to death and people who are sick. They would rather you just die quickly, so you don't exercise your right to medical treatment that they have to pay for, that eats into that $60,000 a year. So I was feeling sorry for myself, you know, thinking I'm going to kill myself. I've got 200 years prospective sentence. This guy's going to die in here. I was feeling sorry for myself. There's always somebody worse off.
Yeah.
And it made me just start to think about the needs of other people. And that's the path that I've been on ever since.
Wow. Well, that's a perfect example of law of relativity being used for good.
Yeah.
It kept you alive.
And I wake up with a smile on my face. Life, karma. I've tried to restore my karma. I feel blessed that I'm not got this 9-to-5 job. I get up. I just get to speak to interesting people like you guys, interview interesting people, write books about the Clinton and Bush crime families. It's not. I was in the stock market. I had to go in for the 6 o'clock in the morning sales meeting, calling 500 numbers a day.
Right.
So I realized how hard, office work is and stuff like that. So I feel blessed now that I'm in this situation that I'm in, and it was kind of accidental.
It's incredible. And so I think it would be really cool for you to share with us anything that, it was, some story from one of your people that you've had, one of the guests that you've had, because it's really funny for me to watch. You will have somebody that's tatted up and looks like, he owned the prison. And then 2 minutes later, you're talking to somebody that, was around Prince Andrew.
Yep.
And so I think that it would be kind of interesting to maybe hear some of the stories that you think are the most shocking or the most entertaining.
Oh my goodness, you want my most shocking? Your audience, they're going to have puke bags ready if you want my most shocking.
No, maybe not. I'm ready. Audience.
What level do you want the stories at then? Because I've got all kinds.
I know, right? Wow.
What kind of level? Just moderate?
Go back to like the Hillary in Haiti and the Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington murders seems to be tied into John Podesta. Maybe you got some crazy story about that. That would be fun.
Okay, so let's go to the hashtag Clinton body count then.
Yeah,
So one of my books is Clinton, Bush, and CIA Conspiracies from the Boys on the Tracks to Jeffrey Epstein. And it starts with the story of Linda Ives. And this is so heartbreaking. So her son is out with a friend. They said they've gone out hunting. And then the next day, the call comes in. 2 bodies are found on the railway tracks, side by side, and the train has run over them. And that's how they've died. So the dad of one of the boys works on that exact train. And he could have very easily been on the train that day. He goes out there and they're hunting folk as well. So they're growing suspicious. The ambulance crew is suspicious. It looks like the blood has been laying around much longer than when the train hit these kids. It was already going dark, the blood. It wasn't fresh blood. So there was all the suspicion was aroused. So Bill Clinton back then had this medical examiner in his pocket. What's his name? Fahmy Malik or something like that. And he determined that the boys had got so high on marijuana, they'd gone into a psychedelic trance and lay side by side on the railway tracks, and the train had run over them, which was absolutely preposterous. So time goes on, and there's Linda is campaigning for justice, but at every level, she is thwarted. A guy comes into her life to help her, a prosecutor, saying he's gonna, get to the bottom of this and interview all these suspects. But all the suspects are getting, or anyone who's got a shred of information about the deaths of these boys, is getting added to the hashtag Clinton body count list. Dozens of people die. And this prosecutor, who's the savior, who's come in to help Linda Ives, years later, he's indicted for running a drug trafficking operation out of the prosecutor's office, whereby if you're an outsider trafficking drugs, he's going to come and, your door's going to be SWAT teamed down. But those drugs are then going to be recycled to the people who are selling them for him. So it's all just, this is what it was like in Arkansas. during President Clinton's governorship, may I add. Serial, coked up sexual predator. Caused nasal damage, was hospitalized for nasal damage from cocaine abuse. And Hillary went down there and told all the staff, if any of you guys ever mention this visit from Bill, you will never get a job again. You will be, and the things that she did to the victims of Bill back then, the women he was either cheating on with, or sexually assaulting. She would find out where they lived, not because she was jealous, so she could terrorize them.
Right.
The stories of pets,
crash, all kind of crazy stuff.
Dead pets, car crashes, people falling off balconies. And these are the guys who were awarded the White House. Yeah, my goodness. Psychopaths. As David Icke says, to get to the top of politics, you have to be a psychopath.
Absolutely.
It really does seem.
Yeah, a lot of mysterious deaths in like the human trafficking that was seen to be going on there in Haiti. Some woman came out about it, and then she suicided herself. So the suiciding, you have like former deputies that were on their bodyguard team. I know you know the body count, but they're like, yeah, obviously, well, because I've learned how to drive vehicles, in combat zones, and we go through driving schools, and I know a lot of deputies and stuff go through, the driving schools. So to have a former deputy, drive off a road and at a perfect time so that it rolls down a hill and he's killed, that these deaths are very, very suspect, like you're talking about. And those two children, it sounds like they kind of stumbled upon a drug deal, and they were eliminated. So
CIA drug drop, that's what we believe.
exactly.
And all this information has come from the good cops and the good people who formerly worked for the CIA, like Terry Reid, who wrote the book Compromised. Have you done anything with him?
No, that'd be good.
So I wrote a book about Barry Seal, American Made, and Terry Reid was his sidekick for a while, but Barry knew that Terry was so clean, he couldn't tell him about the cocaine trafficking side of it. So Terry just thought, I'm a patriot, communists need their asses kicking in Nicaragua, we're taking weapons down, it's a good cause. Now, Barry and Terry had the idea of setting up a Southern Air Transport out of Mexico. But Barry was taken out, I believe, at the instructions of George H.W. Bush, who orchestrated the federal court system to house Barry at a fixed location and to have an order down from the court that he couldn't have weapons or bodyguards, so that the Colombian cocaine cartels knew where he was and he was unarmed. I think George H.W. Bush orchestrated that, and that's how Barry ended getting assassinated by a Colombian hitman. And when his body was found, he had George H.W. Bush's phone number on his corpse. Yeah, so Terry Reid, he continued then over to Mexico with the CIA. He still was not aware of the cocaine trafficking, but when he opened the packages that had the cocaine in Mexico, he realized that was what was going on all along, and he blew the whistle. And oh boy, it's a hell of a story. He's got this big book, Compromised. So he was criminalized. They tried to kill him. They threw him in jail, and he's an absolute hero, brave soul, getting through that and then getting this book out to expose what happened with Barry Seal, with Bill Clinton. He had meetings. He was there when Bill Clinton was taking cocaine shipments. They were in packages labeled medical organs and medical supplies. And he was there when Bill Clinton was getting high and all this stuff. And then when he tried to expose it decades ago, they did a hit piece on him in one of the big newspapers out there. I can't remember the one it was. He'd started to make some progress against Clinton, but then all the big media came out and just knocked him back down, made him out to be a lunatic. But people now have woken up to exactly what happened back then. It's commonly accepted, about the CIA cocaine trafficking now. People used to say you used to be a conspiracy theorist if you talked about that.
Yeah, we've come a long way.
Common knowledge now, yeah. So Attorney General Barr. So Juan Savin, who I talk about, and he comes on my show and discloses, some things. He told me that Attorney General Barr was the one that coordinated that hit on Barry Seals, because they thought that he was holding some of their money, and that was started by Daddy Bush, and he wanted eliminated. You're right.
Oh, I'd love to interview that person.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of crisscross between you two.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you'd have to do it on the side, because I've had him on my show and it gets taken down. So I think the two of you hooking up there'd be an interesting exchange. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I might even turn you on to him. I'll mention you. So.
Please do. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Well, I'm just so thankful that you came, and you're amazing, and I love your stories. I love your channel. It's phenomenal, and I love what you're doing. And I'm one of those people that wants to usher in the future. I'm so excited for a lot of this stuff to crumble and to fall apart. And I do believe that part of that process is getting everybody awake to it. And you've done a phenomenal job doing that. Your piece in this puzzle. Where do you see yourself going next, as far as your dreams and the things that you would like to do to contribute to the world?
Wow, another deep question then. Let me think. I'm very appreciative of people like you allowing me to get the audience, get it out to an even bigger audience through your own channel. I'm appreciative of all of the subscribers who have steered the channel and put forward all of these brilliant guest suggestions and subjects that have led to it getting to where it is. So it's like this community that's just grown. And I just hope that it continues to grow. When I was a young person, I always had like a 5 or a 10-year plan. I've got to be a millionaire by the time I'm 30. I'm long range thinking like the Chinese. But like I said earlier, I just wake up now with this smile on my face. It's just growing organically.
Yes.
I don't really have this big strategy anymore. And I'm just happy that I don't have to have this hardcore office job. I wake up, get to meet and interview interesting people, and it just feels fulfilling for me to do that karmically. I know when I was ecstasy trafficking, I just thought I was keeping the party going, but I was misguided. In the jail, I saw the horror of what drug use led to. Right. You got guards smuggling it in, the place is absolutely flooded, visitors smuggling it in, now you got drones dropping the drugs off. And 90% injecting heroin, crystal meth. 2/3 in some of the areas I lived had hepatitis C, yellow jaundice skin, teeth rotting out. And that was the wake-up call I needed, because I was sober in the jail. So for the first time, I saw the horror of what drug use leads to. That road is very long. And I was ashamed of putting people on that road, but I knew I couldn't change my past. So I just resolved to go out and share my story, in the hope that young people wouldn't make my same mistakes. And that's what I did mostly when I got out. But then all of a sudden, the YouTube channel took off about 3 years ago. I've had this channel for about 12 years now. And it's just blossomed into this, going after these bastard super predators. And the commonality is many of the people in prison had been sexually abused as kids. And they're not given the tools to deal with it. So then they get into crime and drug use. Drug use is like self-medication because of the sexual abuse. The crime might be done to pay for the drugs, or just because they've got this chaotic energy about them. If you're a man, invariably you go into drug dealing or stealing things to pay for the drugs. Or if you're a woman, you become a sex worker. Now, interviewing hundreds of people on the channel, I've just seen this over and over and over again. So you asked how I would like to see the world changed. The harm these pedophiles, not just elite pedophiles, but all pedophiles, cause with the hundreds of victims, some of them like these Catholic priests, how it affects those people for their entire lives. And then you've got all of the victims of their crimes and how it affects them. The multiplicity of effects could be drastically reduced if we could stop these pedophilic crimes, or at least minimize them. And now our mission statement on the channel has become, in the last year, end the war on drugs. Take all those resources and go after the super predators and the pedophiles. Why should a Catholic priest who's got hundreds of victims, who brings in some high-priced lawyer, get like a 6-month sentence when there are young people in prison, according to the Hemp Museum in Holland, young when they were originally arrested, under 3 strikes laws, serving 25 to life for weed possession, which cost the taxpayers millions. So we believe the whole system is upside down. I'm also an associate member of LEAP, which used to be Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. And they say they did join to get the pedophiles and the rapists and the murderers. And because of the war on drugs, they were assigned to infiltrate a student group, get them smoking pot, and then arrest them all at the end of the month to make their arrest quotas. It's absolutely obscene, but there are these vested interests. There's like a wall of money, prison guards unions, private prisons, telephone service contractors. There's hundreds of them. These parasitical entities are keeping this lobby reserve money to prevent things from being reversed because they're profiting from the status quo.
Right.
The contributions to politicians of the private prisons are in the tens of millions a year. To both parties, it doesn't matter who wins. The contracts are in the tens of billions. So in my ideal world, prisons would house people who hurt other people.
Right.
Pedophiles, murderers, rapists, drug traffickers. I was a drug trafficker. I'm not excluding myself. But to fill the prisons, they went after the lowest hanging fruit, the mentally ill, people with addiction issues, soldiers, low-level drug users. That's how they filled them up. And then you hear the sad stories of child sexual abuse. All that money could have gone into going after predators. I mean, in this country, they said, what the Jimmy Savile thing came about, and they said, we've run out of money to investigate any more pedophile politicians. Well, you've run out of money because of all this money you've got on this wasted on a war on drugs. $2 trillion on a war on drugs in America. And what's it achieved? You've got more drugs available than ever before, stronger than ever before. Fentanyl hasn't achieved anything. But they know from alcohol prohibition that doesn't work, but they've learned to profit from it. So that's why they don't stop it. So in my ideal world, war on drugs is reversed, and all those resources go after these predators that cause so many knock-on effects in people's lives. Because if you've been molested as a kid, that stays with you forever. And if you turn to crime because of that, then there's all your other victims as well. And that could be prevented.
Yes, I love that. I absolutely love that. And I do believe it's possible. I just think it's going to take a lot of people not just being aware, but actually checking in where their local communities and finding out, what's the process? How do we change this? The whole prison, we need to have a war on prison system. And I really felt that way when I worked with One Heart, because I couldn't believe what these children, these are like 18 and younger, were able to access in jail. They could get Burger King, they could get drugs, they could have sex with somebody. I mean, I was like, are you serious? Like, I was absolutely shocked at what goes on in the system. And so all of us can make an impression on this world if we actually do a little bit of work. Just ask some questions, reach out, find out, get involved.
Yeah, and young people go to prison for a low-level drug offense, maybe weed possession. They faced with the neo-Nazi Aryan Brotherhood prison gang, if they're white, who gets them on the heroin, gives them Nazi tattoos. Then they've made a name for themselves and they're hardened in prison. And they get out completely different people with criminal records. They can't get jobs. They're characters in the system. And that's all they know and they go back to. But that's what keeps the prisons in business. In Arizona, they give them $50 when they get released, gate money, and say, have a nice day.
Yeah. So man, you just cover so many things. When I was in SEAL Team 6, I went to Australia and worked with their special forces guys, and they had a prison break, and their special forces guys are basically like here in the US, FBI has a hostage rescue team, and they respond to the prison breaks and stuff like that. But in Australia, their special forces guys do that. So when I was working with them, they were like, quizzing me on demolitions and stuff like that. And wanted me to go to this prison because they had responded to a prison break there. And so I'm looking at it, and we had the warden come in and talk to us. And he said, just like you said, 85% of the criminals that are there were molested as children. I was like, whoa, that's got to stop. That will be like, we empty the jails just with that.
Yeah, let's stop that. Absolutely.
So it's beautiful. I loved you came on. I wouldn't want to hold you too long because, you're on UK time. But, I think that going forward, we're going to see this thing crumble. I think it's crumbling right now against these guys. And, your work and, many other people that are, coming forward and exposing different things on this pedophile network really is making a difference.
Yeah, well, really appreciate what you guys are doing as well, Michael and Carmen, and would look forward to doing some more work with you in the future, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we're just touching the surface of this. It's beautiful. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Be happy to send you some of my books. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Awesome. We'll make sure we get all your information in the description box too.
Okay, I really appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah, whatever you want us to put in there, send to Carmen or myself, and I'll put something in here, your YouTube channel at least right away. But your book links or anything like that you want, we'll put those in here.
I'll pop those in an email for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Great honor and a pleasure having you on. Thanks, Shaun.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Cheers.
Oh, when will this be published then?
It's going to be on both